Welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out to learn, to share, and we are so grateful for you. So to kick us off, tonight we're going to begin with an experience share, and we have Carina, who is going to tell us one of her experiences from beginning a Solle program and what happened after she started. So Carina?
Yes, hi. Well, this starts a few years back. I was having a lot of pain with my period cycle. I know many of you girls out there can relate to that loading, that sharp pain that I thought, I thought it was age. And I just felt so like, I thought I was gaining weight because of how bloated I would get. That pain, sometimes I would have to stay in bed, and the pain in the breast. Oh my word, I'm pretty sure a lot of you can relate to that. And it was excruciating. It wasn't fun at all. I went to the doctor for one of my visits, and she asked me to do an ultrasound because she found it like something in there. And when she did the ultrasound, she found cysts, and one of them was a little big, and she was concerned. So she told me, we'll check you in 2 months, and if it grows, we'll maybe have to do surgery to remove it, which it scares me. I mean, surgery is no fun. So I talked to my mentor, and she told me, your daughter is already taking, so why don't you take it? Because I wasn't taking it. My daughter was, but I wasn't. And I started the program. To my surprise, next menstrual cycle, my breast didn't hurt. I was like, how? And I went to the doctor after the 2 months, and she does an ultrasound, and there's nothing there. Like in 2 months, the program, the product that I was taking, it literally dissolved the cyst, which, I mean, I was happy for it because I didn't have to go through the knife. And it was amazing how Solle worked in my body to stop that pain and the discomfort that you feel in the menstrual cycle. And now, like, I feel some discomfort, but it's nothing, absolutely nothing compared to what I was feeling. So that's a little bit of my experience with Solle, because that I was amazed about how can the same product work in your whole body.
I love that. And especially, thank you so much for sharing. And I especially love the last sentence that you said, was that it's amazing what all the benefits that we can receive from the same products. Like even just one product has so many benefits. And I love that. Thank you so much, Carina, for sharing. And I look forward in the future to hearing more of your experiences and all the benefits that you have experienced as well. So thank you so much. So tonight we're talking about worry. We're going to talk about how to stop worry. We're going to talk about both the physiological and the neurological parts of worry. So how to stop worrying. And, this is kind of a really interesting topic because most of us think there's this challenge, right? There's this problem. And, if I could just solve it, then I could fix it and I wouldn't have to be worried. And, honestly, I'm with you. That's the way my brain works too. I want to fix all the problems. I want to solve all the challenges of the world. But sometimes we can't, right? Or at least not right away. And this is when kind of worry usually comes up. And this is the problem And the thing is that worry doesn't actually help solve a problem. And of course, it feels terrible and it does a lot of things in our body. And so we're going to talk about some of that tonight. So tonight, I want to teach you basically three things. First thing we're going to talk about is understanding emotions, right? Because I want to understand that worry is an emotion, right? Stress is a feeling, fear is a feeling. All of these things are emotions. And so specifically, we're going to talk about worry today, but we're going to talk about understanding like where they come from and what they do in the body, right? Number two, I'm going to talk to you about why we worry as human beings, right? Because there's not anything wrong with you. It's not because you're weak, or it's not because, you can't figure something out, or but at the same time, it is an optional process, right? And then the third thing we're going to talk about is how do we stop worrying? And by understanding more about our emotions and what happens in the body, and then why we worry, it'll really help us go a long, long way in actually learning how to stop worrying as well. So, understanding emotions. So what is an emotion, right? Emotions are sensations in the body created by our thoughts. And in past classes, you might recognize these brain diagrams from a previous class. But this is where it comes from, right? We have the fear circuitries in the brain that are sensing like, is everything okay? Is there anything that I should be afraid of right now, right? And what happens is we have thoughts that trigger these circuitries in the brain. And so we have fear, and then that goes over and it activates the seeking circuitry. And the seeking circuitry, as we've talked before, is looking for solutions, right? And it starts activating a whole chain of neurochemicals, neurotransmitters, and hormones in the body to start solving the problems. And then those neurochemicals and hormones and neurotransmitters in the body, they give like a feedback loop to our brain, and that will activate the satisfaction circuitry. And then we also have another circuitry in the brain that talks about embodiment, and that's actually feeling and processing and sensations in our body. So what's really interesting about emotions is there's sensations that are felt in the body that are created by our thoughts in our brain. And it's actually a two-way feedback. Our body talks to our brain through that embodiment circuitry of the brain. And then our brain is talking to our body and creating neurotransmitters and neurochemicals and hormones and a whole cascade of chemicals, biochemicals that are creating the sensations in our body. And the second thing to understand about emotions is they are the fuel for every single thing we do. Because every single thing that we do is either to move towards something that feels really good or move away from something that doesn't feel good at all, right? And that's what our seeking circuitry is designed to do, move towards things that are good and move away from things that are bad. So when we have feelings that are creating like terrible feelings or something that's scary or something that we don't know what to do with, we are trying to move away from those feelings. And we can do those in a lot of ways. And we've talked about that previously, because sometimes it's not always a good way. And we'll talk about worry in that concept here in a minute. So all of this is happening instantaneously, right? We think a thought, the brain is in coordination with all the other things going on biologically and chemically in our bodies, and our brain immediately responds. And these things are meant to steer us again towards something that will help us or away from something that won't. But sometimes it gets a little bit misguided, because sometimes what happens is the brain starts creating all the neurochemicals and all the things in our body. But sometimes what happens is those go into our body, and maybe because we might have an organ that's a little bit out of balance, or we have, something else in our body that is not, all the same, those chemicals can kind of get in there and get stuck. And so then they don't come back up to the brain in the same way. So the brain knows when to turn it off and when to turn it on. So sometimes this system can get a little bit misguided. But the thing that I want you to understand is that our thoughts really do create these feelings. And then these feelings are the fuel for everything else that we do in our body. So why do we worry, right? Because worry doesn't really feel good, right? The chemicals and the hormones that circulate through our body when we're worried, they actually don't make us feel good. They make us feel really tight. They might make us feel, you know, like even hot, right? Like they might make us feel like something in our stomach, like kind of queasy. Like we just have all kinds of actual physical sensations. And so these don't really feel incredible. And so I'm going to give you two reasons why we worry. Number one is oftentimes when a problem arises, worry seems like the only option, right? When we get from fear, like let's just use like an example. One of the things I've been talking to a lot of people about lately is the economic downturn. And so people are getting like, oh, what's going to happen? Am I going to have enough money? And they start having these thoughts about not having enough. And that ignites the fear, right? And they start having these worry thoughts, right? And it creates worry and anxiety. And that's what's happening in the seeking circuitry, because the brain is thinking, if I just keep trying to figure out how to solve this, then you know, it feels productive, right? And so sometimes it feels like the only option is worry because we don't have a concrete solution, right? Or the solution is out of our control. And then another thing that can happen is that worry feels preventative, which satisfies our brain. And so remember, this is all working in a loop that's constantly feeding back to each other. So we're seeking for solutions, and then that's satisfying us, and we're getting certain neurochemicals and hormones and transmitter, you know, all neurotransmitters produced because we're getting a little bit of satisfaction from working on the problem, right? Because it's a preventative measure. Now, I do want to be really clear here. Just because worry doesn't feel good, that doesn't necessarily mean that when we have something that's scary that we're dealing with, that we just want to go to the polar opposite, right? Like we don't necessarily want to go from worry to, oh, this is so amazing, right? Because it's not, right? So we want to look at the spectrum of available thoughts and available feelings and kind of practice through one of those. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. So how do we stop worrying? Now that we know that worry is an emotion that is created by our thoughts, and it's exactly the way our brain is designed, right? And what's the process, right? If you find yourself worrying a lot or worrying all the time, what are our next steps? And so here is the steps. What is necessary to prevent cycles of worry? And basically what I mean by that is getting stuck in worry, because worry is not horrible. It's just we don't want to get stuck in the cycle of worry forever. So number one is we want to create emotional safety through validation. And so that looks like acknowledging the fear, right? So you can, and you're doing that with your emotions. You're saying, this is something that is kind of is making me concerned, right? So you're acknowledging the fear. The second thing that we want to do is we want to address the physiology or the physical body, right? And because we need to create safety in the body first so that the body can feed back to the brain that it's safe. Because remember that fear circuitry is constantly evaluating whether we're safe. So we want to create safety in the body. And there's a couple ways to do this, but if you are in a situation like physically where you need to move yourself to a place that's more safe, then you want to do that. But another thing we want to do is we want to make sure we're giving our body the right nutrition. Because remember, I said, if the body is imbalanced and not having the right things to be able to create that chemical orchestra feedback loop, then things get all like stuck. Like it could get stuck in maybe your kidneys, or it could get stuck in your bladder, like different chemicals or different biochemicals and hormones can get kind of like pushed into different places in our body. And so we want to make sure we're giving ourselves, the proper nutrition. Also, we want to make sure we're giving our brain a lot of nutrition so that we can process all of these neurochemicals as well. Number 3, the third step is to clear your thoughts. So what you want to do is, now you've addressed the body, and I'll give you an exact example of the way I do this. But you've addressed the body, you've made sure that you're properly, you have nourishment. If you needed to move, if you needed to walk, whatever you got to do, but you want to clear your thoughts by writing every single thing down and getting it onto paper, because getting it out of your brain and onto paper it just really frees up space in your brain. And you want to get it out of your head. So you want to write down all of your thoughts. And then you want to consciously evaluate them. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about being able to use the executive circuitry, or the prefrontal cortex of our brain, to make conscious decisions and thoughts. And so you want to practice these new thoughts to stop the cycle of worry. One of the thoughts that I find really, really useful in a situation of worry specifically is, like, let's say there's something that's out of control and it's making you worry. Let's use the economic downturn for an example. You can say, like, when you start getting worried, you're like, oh, am I not going to have enough money? Am I going to be able to keep my job? Are we going to be able to pay our bills? You can just practice the thought, we'll figure it out when we get there, and just slow the process down. So it's a thought you might want to try. It definitely works for me. So let me give you an example of specifically what I do to address these 4 steps. I'm going to create the emotional safety through validation. I'm going to tell myself, this situation is a little bit challenging. It feels a little bit out of control. I'm going to address the physiology. And for me, that's usually going to look like getting a drink, one of my soul beverages, and putting it in my body. And the reason why I like these drinks is because when I consume a drink, I usually feel the results very quickly, within 20 to 30 minutes. And so I know that my body is starting to use the things that it needs. Most often, it's actually going to be vital. It might occasionally be renewed depending on the time of the day when this process is happening for me. Then I'm going to clear my thoughts by writing down in my journal all of the thoughts that I'm having about the situation that I'm feeling worried about. And then I'm going to start going through those thoughts and just practicing new ones that will reduce the emotion in my body, right? And allow my body to process those emotions a little bit better. And when you do this process doesn't have to take a long time. It could be 5 or 10 minutes. What you'll experience is that emotions usually feel like kind of like waves in the body. So it's going to feel like, oh, I'm getting worried about something. And then it's going to kind of release, and you're going to have like a new thought, like, you know what, I'll figure it out when I get there. And then it might feel like a wave, but here in about 20 minutes, worry will have subsided, and you'll have created a new neural pathway in the brain, a new practice thought that you can start using in the future to eliminate all cycles of worry in the future. So I hope this has really, really helped you. One of the things that is really, really key is nutrition, right? In this process, the way our brain and our body and the way it's all connected in this beautiful orchestra, it is really key that we give ourselves proper nutrition. And so tonight, I have asked the founder and president of Soul Naturals for our soul connection piece to specifically come and tell us about one of my favorite, not only my favorite drinks, but a very particular part of my favorite drink, which is the plant trace minerals. And I'm going to let him tell us all about the SativaMin blend found in Vital.
Thank you, Erica. I actually loved your worry, this whole section on worry. That's a good one for me. I mean, true confession here. It is something that I have to work on all the time. I will say that. And because I'm so blessed to be around so much good information and these great products. And sometimes it's, it can be easy to think, oh, we talk about it all the time and we produce these products, so we have it all together. And I think what we do is we just have these great connections for education like we're getting tonight, where we can continue to learn and work on ourselves. And I actually love this SativaMin blend, and that's just 1/3 of the formula for SolleVital. There are 3 groups of plants. I love this description of using the nutrition here to create sort of physiological safety, let the body get that state of physiological safety. In fact, it reminds me of something about SolleVital in particular. One of the reasons it's a daily is because we got to deposit in the bank, in our nutritional bank every day. And minerals might be, it's got to be in the top 1 to 3 if you had to classify types of nutrients that we burn through and that we just chronically walk around depleted. And we can give the reasons for that. And tonight we don't need to talk about why it's that way. Let's just talk about what they are and why they're so important. And so if you don't mind, I actually grabbed some slides and I'm going to read them to you because these are from a training from Dr. Allison. And she did a whole training on the SativaMin blend and how they are related to the mental health component of SolleVital. And so I'm going to just give you some highlights from that. So the SativaMin blend is comprised of 4 different highest in their plant category, mineral containing herbs. One is Avena sativa. The second one is nettle, stinging nettle. The third is burdock. And the fourth is dandelion. And we often talk about how they support very specific vital organs like our kidneys, like our heart, like lungs, like liver. And they really do. There's lots of great studies directly connecting these. But tonight, I want to focus on the minerals because minerals play such a key role in what Erica's teaching us. And if we can all improve how we manage the worry cycle, oh man, we're going to find noticeable improvements in all areas of health. That's the neat thing, right, about the study of really holistic health is it's the relationship between the nutrients and the emotions and feeling and how it all is kind of one circle and it's all connected. So SativaMin has these really high concentrations. I say high, but they are trace, like Erica said. Trace amounts. So if you go and you measure them, they're not going to be loaded like some mineral drinks you see, which you are absorbing a portion of, because these minerals are plant absorbed, plant contained, and your body readily takes them in, and with a little trace amounts does remarkable things. I'm convinced of that over the years. In fact, one of my favorite experiences when I was brand new, when I was 26, I had a friend who actually I had just turned 27, who introduced me to herbs and everything. And one of the first things I saw in a demonstration was a glass of water, and someone had a little light bulb, and they had these 2 electrodes. And so when they touched them in the water, it completed the circuit and the light bulb went on. And then in the second one, they added some minerals, dipped the same light bulb, and it was like 3 times as bright. Why is the light bulb brighter with the addition of minerals? Because water, everyone knows what water conducts electricity. Water is such a great conductor. Could there be a better conductor? And a high percentage of the body's water, but these minerals are game changers, and they are that way in the brain. So let me just tell you a couple things with just a few minutes that remain for me. So Dr. Allison, when she talks about these 4 plants in SativaMin, the first one is Avena sativa, hence the name SativaMin. Why did we name this mineral blend after that? Because Avena sativa is a little bit of a headliner because of the way in which it nourishes and levels nervous system health, aside from the fact that it's loaded with minerals. It is a nervine, and she reminds us in her presentation that nervines, they relax the nervous system, they reduce stress, reduce anxiety and worry. So yes, it has its processes as Eric is teaching us, but it seems apparent that when the body has a better nutrition, a more complete nutrition, we aren't swung as widely in some of these trials. Not only that, but cramping and muscle tension, spasm, nervines also reduce those. They're antispasmodic, and they actually feed nourish nervous system tissue. With long-term use, they are game changers. And she divides the nervines into two groups, the relaxant nervines, and then you would call them stimulants. So a relaxant is not a sedative. So there are some of those qualities in nervines in Solle products, but they are not sedatives. What they simply do is enhance vitality. They don't suppress it, and they take anxiety away so that we can relax. They aren't an overriding chemical like a sedative is. And stimulants, those aren't like stimulants like we think of, like these energy drinks. In fact, Avena Sativa is a nervine stimulant. So what that does is, while it's relaxing, it stimulates our body's resistances to these stimulations that cause stress fluctuation, stress reaction. So really, really interesting. Avena Sativa is that way. By the way, so is yerba mate in Cinnamate. So in getting into a little more detail, she says, okay, you can even divide these nervines into the nutritional nervines. This SativaMin group, they're nutritional nervines because there are plenty of vitamins and minerals and also nervines. So there's this dual function. She highlights, for example, in these two, Avena Sativa and nettle. So just as an example, if you take a good amount of nettle, you get a lot of vitamin A, you get beta carotene, you get a good amount of calcium, dietary calcium, iron, and protein. Okay, that comes in, that's fairly standard if you get a good quality nettle. And in the case of Avena Sativa, which, remember, that's the little milky oat. In other words, it's the oat seed as it's forming and it's in its most potent nutritional state. That's when it's harvested in Avena Sativa. Great source of magnesium, great source of vitamin A as well. All of the B vitamins except B12, all of them are in Avena Sativa, in the oat straw. Here's a couple of points about why those are important. She mentions that vitamin A in the brain regulates a lot of our gene products, modulates nerve growth, neural survival, and the communication, synaptic plasticity between nerve cells. Vitamin A, the particular form that comes through from this plant, it regulates those things. And contrary, looking at vitamin B, a deficiency in it is always tied to, or almost always tied to, any kind of mental imbalance, including depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, cognitive decline. In other words, more B vitamins present, less of that. Calcium, not only we know about bones, teeth, and blood, but it also regulates how excitable our nerves are, how well the impulses travel, and how well we absorb. Vitamin D is a part of how well we absorb that. The chemical messengers in the brain come, many of them, on calcium ions. Neurons can't release neurotransmitters without calcium. So minerals, and the list goes on and on. I'm not going to be able to explain all of these tonight because there isn't time. But let me just tell you a few others that she lists by name. Chromium. Every one that she lists here has a directly associated impact on brain health and memory. Chromium actually is a memory enhancer, not just a blood sugar regulator. Magnesium, that same thing helps us utilize vitamin C, E, vitamins B6, works with calcium. It's needed by several hundred of the enzymes in our body. Without magnesium, they don't function. And we can't always measure it in the blood. Dr. Allison, she reminds us that 1% of the calcium is stored in the blood. Blood test is not going to tell you much. 99% of it is stored elsewhere. Why? What does it do? Why is it elsewhere? It strengthens our nerve endings, the synapses between nerves, improves learning, strengthens the hippocampus synapses. In other words, low levels of magnesium, worse memory. Our memories, we struggle more with our memory, protects against brain degeneration, improves mood, decreases stress, it reduces anxiety, less headaches, less insomnia. This is all magnesium and the brain. Then she mentions manganese, another another mineral that's in this little blend of SativaMin. Our connective tissue and the way our body metabolizes for energy metabolism is dependent upon our manganese level. It does behave similar to iron. We put all this attention on iron because it is important, and manganese has a similar vitality, or let's call it a vital need in the body. We heard a little bit about PMS symptoms. Manganese is a huge factor in those swings, depression, headaches, and pains associated with PMS. Low levels have been associated with epilepsy. Potassium, here's another one that's in there. The conduction of nerve impulses doesn't happen if we don't have enough. It is the second highest mineral in terms of abundancy in plants, critical for nerve signals inside and outside with the brain together with sodium. If we don't have enough potassium, enough of this mineral, then nerves need more stimulation. The body has to work harder to make them fire and send their messages. Selenium, another one, protects our DNA from damage, protects the heart, stimulates very key antioxidants in the body. And in the brain, a higher selenium is associated with better mood, low selenium associated with decline. Zinc, not just for skin, hair, and nail tissue repair, but actually nerve communication. Here's another one. I read a book, Nutritional Healing is the name of her book, and she talks about that cell connectivity and that just the basic fact of life is minerals for cell communication. Zinc is one that we have better memory and learning. And by the way, zinc and iron, according to Dr. Allison, are the most concentrated metals in the brain, zinc and iron. So to kind of conclude here, these minerals, I've mentioned a bunch of them. There's a scientist who I really respect. His name is Mark Pedersen. It was one of the first scientists I learned in the natural field. And what he did is he took a bunch of herbs to the lab, and he literally just measured levels of common vitamins and minerals, well-known plant compounds, and he just rated the herbs from low to moderate to sort of typical or average, and then high, and then very high. So like a 5-level scale. So he's done this for the herbs that we have in SativaMin. Where they rate high or very high is listed next in Dr. Allison's training. Nettle, rated high or very high in calcium, chromium, cobalt, magnesium, manganese, phosphorus, potassium, selenium, silicon, zinc. I mentioned a lot of these tonight. Avena sativa, rate high or very high in calcium, chromium, iron, manganese, magnesium, phosphorus, silicon, zinc. Dandelion, high or very high in manganese, phosphorus, iron. Now, dandelion's loaded with a ton of other things too. Burdock, chromium, iron, magnesium, zinc, silicon, potassium, phosphorus. So I guess the long and the short of this is we purposefully, we chose well these 4 herbs. Not only do they balance a lot of the nourishment to vital organs, but they're very high or very high in a laboratory. We also use, by the way, concentrated extracts. So he's just talking the raw powders high or very high. Then we took the raw powder and we put a concentrate in here because the mineral bank is always running in deficit. It's not FDIC secured. And we run it that way. We don't get charged overdraft fees. I guess we kind of do, don't we? It shows in other health things that start to, we get these messages from the body. But it is the central core of SolleVital for a reason, those 3 plant groups. So SativaMin, one of my very, very favorite components. And you can just build with that. Drink as often as your body craves the vital, drink it, because that group you're never going to really get enough of.
I love all of this information. What's interesting is the minerals are so key. And I think a lot of times with Vital, we talk about the adaptogens, right? Often. And so that was my reason. I was like, I want you to talk about this specific thing, because this is like something I don't feel that we talk about as much. Maybe they just mention like minerals, but these plants are powerful. And what's interesting specifically for the brain, and the reason why I love Vital, is a lot of times I'll have people that are like, oh, well, why can't I just take, if I'm having anxiety, maybe I'll just take some GABA, right? Or I'll take, this. And what's interesting for people who are looking at that is when you're looking at a neurotransmitter that's, and you're going to just try to replace it, they're too big. The molecule doesn't get into the brain. As a matter of fact, if it does and you're feeling a result from taking that, you actually have another problem. It means that your brain has so much inflammation that the blood-brain barrier is not really being effective anymore. So that's a whole nother issue for another topic for another night. But these plant minerals, the way we consume them in the drink, like it gets in, it does the work, right? And then our brain can use it to create the neurochemicals. And like you said, we can never get enough of them because our brain requires so much nutrition that we're not getting. We're not getting these trace minerals in our foods anymore. We're not getting these things. And so I find this to be so powerful. It's interesting because just yesterday, I had somebody telling me like, oh, I really just tried this for a month and I really can't get over the flavor of Vital. And I'm like, I hear what you're saying. And they're like, can I just not do that one? And then I'll just do the rest. And I'm like, I hear what you're saying, but if you knew the benefit, like if you understood what I know about Vital and the way it's like essential, foundational, like you would literally be taking the center block, that you built the whole foundation like out. And yes, all the other things have so much nutrition in them. They're good. Don't get me wrong. It's all good. But this one is so key and has so many pieces. To me, Vital is like, I don't know, at least 3 different products if you went and tried to like
yeah,
get it,
and Erica, and Erica, you can tell them, my wife Donna, it's been 10 years, right, since Solle. She still won't drink Vital by itself. She mixes it with cinnamate, but she drinks 1 or 2 of those every day. So she's getting 1 to 2 Vital a day, and she won't ever drink cinnamate without it. So she could try, or he could try to mix it with cinnamate, because they could try it, see if they like it, see if that tastes better.
And I always recommend, just try it in all the different ways. Keep putting it in your body because I promise you your body needs it. Your body can definitely use it. And my story is I didn't like it. I didn't like it in the beginning. It actually gagged me, but I knew that my body needed it. I kept looking at the ingredients, right? And I was like, man, this is such a good product. It really is. And so I kept putting it in. Now I love it. I drink 3 to 4 of them a day. I could totally drink, I could just drink it all the time, and not ever stop because I just really like it that much. And I know it's working because it makes me feel like I can feel Vital. Like I can drink it first thing in the morning and within 20 minutes, my brain is like working better. And I always tell people that if you want to have more productivity and more focus, yes, take your Excel because that helps. And also get that Vital in because it's like a power-packed combo. You might want to do them both in the morning first thing because they are powerful. I promise you, you will have more productivity, more focus, probably make more money, all the things because you'll be so much more effective in the world.
I love this information, Erica, because I when people tell me I only want 2 drinks this month, try and stay on something maintenance, and they want to try all the other products Solle has, I always say, okay. And I get it. And they'll say, so what? Red, yellow, and then blue, green. And I say, no, green, red. Let's go with colors. Green, red 1 month, the next month, green, blue, the next month, green, yellow, always green, always. You never let go of Vital. And this is why. I love it. Thank you, Greg. That was amazing.
So super excited. Everybody, thank you so much for coming out. I'm going to tell you, if you're brand new and you're trying to figure out how can I get, these products or this program and how do I get started? Get back with the person that invited you here tonight. I promise you they have a system to help you. We combine the products with incredible protocols, and then we have incredible mentors and people to help guide you along the way. We're going to do it together because that's really what it's about for us, is we want to help you and guide you along your way to reaching your optimal wellness, whatever that is for you. And we meet you where you're at, and we'll take you to wherever you want to go. And we're here to walk that path with you. So again, get back with your mentor and let them know where you're at and what you want to take a look at, and they can get you all the answers that you need. For now, thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.